Good afternoon. First of all, this is the first webinar I've ever done, so if I'm not loud enough, sorry. But anyway, we are going to go over the fiscal year 2012 Small Cities CDBG Comprehensive Downtown Revitalization Programs. We actually will have 3 different tiers we will go through, and each of those tiers that we go through, there will be thresholds. There'll be different types of how the goals are made and the total of funds available. So here we go. First, program goals. The goals are to assist in the rehabilitation and renovation of central business districts. It is to aid in the elimination of slum and blight, is to create and retain job opportunities, and the total amount of funds that is available per year is $2.5 million. Eligible activities. CDBG small city jurisdictions. Who is eligible for these funds? Cities. Counties may apply on behalf of a city or a village, and villages may apply. Applicants will be asked to identify themselves as A, Main Street community, B, an emerging Main Street community, or C, a non-Main Street community. The comprehensive downtown programs, there are 3. A Tier 1 program is the Downtown Revitalization Planning, and there's up to $100,000 for that Tier 1 planning. Tier 2 is the Downtown Revitalization Building and Streetscape. We have $2.4 million, and that is a 24-month program. And Tier 3 is called Targets of Opportunity, which is also called a discretionary. This is CDBG Fund Discretionary Program. We'll go to the Tier 1 first, and we'll go about the maximum and minimum available. The maximum request that a community can ask for is $15,000. There is a minimum match that would be a 1-to-1 match. Now, within that, the maximum in kind is 40%, and the minimum local government commitment is 10% cash. And CDBG can be used for formula, revolving loan, any other dollar CDBG can be used for that 10% cash. The application timing would be from June 2011 through June 2012. It's an open cycle, so first come, first serve. The program is a 14-month program, 12 months to complete it, and then to draw down funds. Tier 1, Comprehensive Downtown Planning. What is required? The minimum application requirements. The comprehensive approach, to incorporate the Main Street 4-point approach. The design, the organization, promotion, and economic restructuring. A lead organization, and a membership with Heritage Ohio. We request that within 3 months of award. The Tier 1 Comprehensive Downtown Planning. What is eligible? Eligible activities include zoning research on ordinance revisions, development of design review criteria, process and enforcement, development of a comprehensive market analysis and a downtown revitalization plan, a market strategy for the central business district. What is ineligible for the comprehensive planning activity. Ineligible activities include activities that do not result in a tangible, usable product, engineering and architectural drawings related to specific activities, and administrative dollars. We'll go on now to the Tier 2 downtown building and streetscape, and this one is what everybody wants and hopefully everybody can get. The maximum match request. You're allowed up to $400,000, and this is a one-to-one match for leverage requirements. You're allowed up to administrative cost up to $60,000 or 20% of the activity program dollar amount. Application timing. We have two applications. We have a threshold application that is due in May of 2012, and then if you are eligible by invitation, there is a full application due in October 2012. Grants are then awarded in January of 2013, and the grant period is 24 months. And that's actually 26 months because you have 24 to complete the project, then final performance reports. The Tier 2 downtown building and streetscape renovations. What is an eligible activity and what does this include? Eligible activities include uniform facade and sign improvement, interior and exterior code violations, parking improvements, and that is like a case-by-case scenario because really this is for a facade program, streetscapes, infrastructure and rehabilitation activities, activity-specific professional fees. This could be like a soft cost per the activities, and direct central business districts administrative cost. So what is ineligible in the downtown program? Ineligible activities include cost of plans and studies, development, refinancing of existing debts, working capital, training, inventory and promotional events, and purchase, refinance, or leasing of non-capital equipment. So you're saying, okay, what do I need to do to apply? Well, the pre-application that is due in May, there are certain thresholds. 1 through 5 must be met to be invited back in for the October 2012. And I will go through them. Activity requirement number 1, an active downtown business association, a minimum of 2 years, including an annual budget and membership. Threshold 2, an adopted downtown market analysis completed within the last 5 years of threshold submission. Now this can also be if it's been adopted within the last 5 years and you're getting to the end of it and you want to reapply, all you have to do is re-adopt the existing plan. An adopted downtown development plan that has been completed within the last 5 years of threshold submission, and the creation and adoption of the design review standards incorporating verbatim the Secretary of Interior's rehab standards, and the creation of a marketing and promotional plan for the downtown area. Tier 3, downtown target of opportunities. This is also considered a CDBG discretionary grant. We have approximately $500,000. This is limited to one building. It can be this definitely is a downtown building, but you could also create economic development with this monies. Application requests limited to funding availability, and the identified gap. It's also an open cycle, first come, first serve. Applications are accepted from June 16, 2011 until all funds are expended. Other things that you would need to know if you're applying for these CDBG federal requirements. First, you need to meet a national objective. Well, most downtowns are one or two things: slum and blight or low to moderate income. With our downtown, you would have a spot slum and blight, or you would have an area slum and blight with a resolution or certification from the mayor or CEO, and that would be 51% of infrastructure and or buildings. You also would need to do an environmental review because our buildings are historical and you're using CDBG dollars. You would have to contact OHPO in coordination. Number 3, procurement. You must do procurement, and during the procurement process we do use federal prevailing wage, Davis-Bacon. Also, you have contract management. Who's going to do the administration of the project? We need to know that. Financial management and record keeping. Go back over 2010 program highlights. In 2010, we completed 144 buildings. Public infrastructure included flood and drainage improvements, new construction, parks and recs, buildings, public utilities, sidewalk improvements, street improvements, and water and sewer facilities. Funding sources: building owners, city and village, ODOT, in-kind, utilities, CDBG formula, and program income. For the year 2010, total investment was $13,503,321. $2.4 million of that was CDBG. Leverage dollars is 5.62 to 1.
Thank you, Carol. We're going to take a moment here while you guys send in some questions. And we'd like to thank Carol and the Ohio Department of Development for doing this today with us. Also, if you enjoyed today's webinar, please think about joining Heritage Ohio. You can learn more about Heritage Ohio at heritageohio.org. The first question is from Ed, and Ed is asking, can you use Tier 1 and Tier 2 on the same building?
Ed, Tier 1 is a planning activity and Tier 2 is the renovation of the building. So I would say no.
Joyce has a question on how much money is left in the Tier 3 for this year.
Good afternoon, Joyce. Right now I have just about $500,000 left, and I just funded one application. I had about $700,000 this year, and we're good to go.
Thanks, Carol. Rachel has a question on, are signage and wayfinding programs eligible for Tier 2 funding?
Rachel, we do wayfinding and signage if it is in the central business district, and if we do not use it with our money, that other dollars could be used for that as your leverage dollars for the $400,000.
Lauren is asking if Phase 1 environmental assessments are an allowable activity under Tier 1 funding.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. You would get an environmental review release for an exempt activity for a planning, but as far as environmental reviews, you would have to do a Tier 2, if I understand your question correctly.
Anthony has a question on, how are you defining a small city?
Anthony, a small city is a city that is less than 50,000 people in population. There are a few exceptions to the rules, but generally if you're under 50,000, you are eligible for small city dollars.
Diane has a question on procurement of a consultant for market studies. They only had one response to that, and is that a problem?
Diane, we ask that you at least have 3 responses. However, if you are not able to come up with 3, just document that you have sent out to more than one consultant.
Laura is asking, does a community have to have a certified Main Street program in order to meet the threshold for a Tier 2?
Good question. Absolutely not. You do not have to be a Main Street community. All that we ask that you would become a Heritage Ohio member.
Thank you, Carol. And Mark is asking about, he's doing a brand spanking new nonprofit management, or he's new to nonprofit management, and he knows nothing about CDBG funds. How can he get more info on this?
Mark, I would say go out onto the website www.development.gov. You could also go on to www.development.ohio.gov also and go to Office of Housing and Community Partnerships, and under that you would see CDBG, and under that there would be all your regulations of different programs.
Diane is asking, does Tier 3 have the same requirements to apply as Tier 2?
Diane, I'm not sure if I really understand the question. However, your Tier 3, we would like to see that you still follow the Secretary of Interior standards. But basically, if you're a member of Heritage Ohio and follow those standards, we will work with you. There is a one-to-one leverage on the Tier 3, and there is no admin dollars.
Back to Ed's original question about whether Tier 1 or Tier 2 could be used for the same building. Yeah, he was actually referring to Tier 2 and Tier 3. Can those funds be used on the same building?
Ed, first off, when you do the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, you may do a Tier 1, a planning, and a Tier 3 discretionary on the same exact year. A Tier 2 cannot be used in that same grant year. However, yes, you can use a Tier 2 and a Tier 3 funds on the same building. We have done that. A lot of times somebody might do a Tier 2, do a facade, and they may have to do asbestos or lead or something, and they'll use their discretionary targets of opportunity to use like $100,000 on the inside of the building.
Dave is asking, will National Register listed buildings have special merit in receiving the funds?
David, I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by special merit. We like to see our dollars going into historical buildings, and there's also other monies available for historical buildings, and you might want to go to http://www.culture.ohio.gov, or you might go to http://foundationcenter.org and go on to both of those websites, and you can find out more strategies and fundraising and other ways. And then there's Ohio tax credit and federal tax credits for these buildings also.
Anthony has another question. He's saying that they're in the process of developing a consolidated plan. How is this different than CDBG and home funds that are part of the allocation?
Anthony, for a tier 1, the difference is the planning is just on your central business district. It is just for a market analysis and a downtown plan in the downtown. Now you can use CDBG and RLF dollars and request additional funds to complete this project. And CDBG dollars can also be used out of a formula allocation for a planning study.
Thanks, Carol. Hunt has a question about the funding. Are all these funding programs available to individual projects that are located in formula or entitlement program communities that are already receiving a formula allocation?
Hunt, good question. CDBG funds and entitlements, most entitlements do not have downtown programs, but the activities would be eligible under CDBG. I have talked with Franklin County in Columbus, Ohio area, and they are talking about using some of their CDBG funds to do downtowns. Also,
it was just about using the allocations for entitlement communities.
And then, yes, entitlement communities can use allocations of CDBG funds to do building facades.
Thanks, Carol. Just a few more questions. If you have any more questions, please send them to us. Christy's asking, for the Tier 3, what are the ownership requirements for the property? Does the property need to be owned by the city?
Christy, absolutely not. Generally, most of the projects that we have done on the discretionary are business owners, or we might do a theater from a nonprofit, but no, the city is not the owner of the projects.
Karen has a question on Tier 2 development. Is listed as an ineligible activity. Could you explain this? Karen, did you forget a word in there? Carol would like some more clarification. If you could send that to her before she answers this. Carol has a question. If our county has received a Tier 1 grant already this year, can our downtown association also apply for one?
Carol, I'm looking over your question. You just received a Tier 1 application through the county. So that application for that Tier 1 is for the Lift Bridge Association, that area. So you would not be eligible to apply for one on your own. It is through the county for that area.
Thanks, Carol. Laura has a question on, could Tier 1 funds be used to develop a redevelopment revitalization plan for a single building? The example is a historic theater.
Laura, you can use a Tier 1 to do a planning activity in the downtown. So if you are doing more than one building, you could go ahead and focus on the one building, but it would be for the entire downtown central business district.
Corey has a few questions. Corey's asking, where can you find the applications, and can they still apply for this year's remaining Tier 3 monies?
Corey, yes, you can apply for Tier $3. All you have to do is send me an email, and I will email you a Tier 3 application. My email is carol.guercio, Guercio, at development.ohio.gov. And I have the money, so definitely I would send it out to you.
Thanks, Corey, for your question. Karen is saying that for Tier 2 downtown building and streetscape, the list of ineligible activities includes the cost of plans, development, and refinancing, etc. What is meant by development?
Karen, We do not do new construction in the Tier 2 application. We have went in and done a reconstruction, but we don't develop like subdivisions or tract housing or anything like that.
Thanks for your question, Karen. Carol is asking from her previous question on whether or not they could receive a second grant after the county has received one. She's asking if they could find another unit of government to apply, like the city, can we apply for another Tier 1 grant?
Karen, I'm going to say no, because what we did in your case is usually Tier 1s are only available to central business districts in a downtown. What we have done, we made the exception because you have basically have 2 central business districts. So we allowed the harbor area to apply for a planning. The city may apply in a year from now, but you cannot have 2 Tier 1s within the city at the same time.
Thank you for the clarification there. The next question is, how many applicants were there for the last Tier 2 round? And how many communities received funding during that round?
Stephen, last year, 2010, I had a total of 12 applicants apply because 5 of them did not meet thresholds. Only 7 were invited back in for the 2010 application. So when they applied, unfortunately, there was still some issues with the final application, and we only funded 3 communities last year. Now this year, 2011, we have invited back 8 out of 12, and we will know in December who will be funded, and those will be awarded in January 2012.
Stephen is also asking, what is an average range in dollar amounts for the awards for Tier 3 funding?
Stephen, usually we will award up to $250,000 with a 1-to-1 match.
Laura's asking, can you do historically appropriate infill construction with a Tier 2 or Tier 3 grant?
Laura, I think this would be a case by case. I don't see why we could not do it if we already had like the foundation, or if a community had a building that burnt down, that as long as all the other funds were used for other projects and facades were done first.
And we have one last question. If you guys have any more questions, please send them quickly as we've reached the last question here. Can a community use Tier 3 this year and apply for Tier 2 next year? And this is from Jim in Johnstown.
Hi, Jim. If it's within a different fiscal year, you can, but you have to, because the fiscal year with the downtown is a 2-year grant, which I know right now your community has applied for Tier 2. So it would be, your Tier 2 would be like funded in 2012. So if it's a 2011 grant and a 2012 grant, yes, but it cannot be the same fiscal years.
Any more questions? If not, Heritage Ohio would like to thank Carol for doing her first webinar with us today. She did very well. And if you have any more questions, you can either send them to me at dmiles@heritageohio.org, or Carol, could you give them your email address as well?
My email address is carol.guercio@development.ohio.gov.
Thank you, Carol. And also, several of you have asked about getting the questions list. I'll put that together this week, and I'll send it out to everyone with the questions and answers that were asked during today's webinar. Also, next week, look forward to seeing the recorded version if you need to share it with anyone else. And once again, I think that's the end of the questions for today. So thank you, Carol, and thank you all, and have a good day.